I am Jim Collison and live from the Gallup studios here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday, Season 4, recorded on April 19th, 2018. Theme Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the CliftonStrengths themes, one theme at a time, and today's theme is Arranger. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during this webcast, we do have a live chat room. It's available for you right below the main video window. Just click on even Maika's point. It's just down there.
I'm going to pull it with my sweet Band-Aid.
That's right. Bottom left-hand corner, it says log in. Choose the guest account. Don't create a new one. Just choose guest. Put your name in where it says guest. Take the numbers out. Hit submit, and you'll be in our chat room. You can ask live questions during the program and even in the post show, which is only available if you listen live. We'd love to have you in there as well. If you're listening to the recorded version or have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions, you can drop us an email, coaching@gallup.com, or there's a contact form right there on the live page. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. For all your CliftonStrengths coaching resources and training needs, you can also catch the video and now downloadable audio. We call that podcasting. It's available for you all off our coach's blog and all the instructions on how to get it done. There's lots of ways to listen to us, either live or recorded. It's on the coach's blog, resources tab. Go to coaching.gallup.com. Don't forget, rate and review this podcast. If you're listening in the Apple Podcast app, you can subscribe there as well. A great way to get it automatically to your phone each week. Or there's an Android way to do it as well. Subscribe and hit the notification alert bell on YouTube or like it on Spreaker. All those things are nice. We always feel good when you do that, and it helps you get them automatically. We appreciate when you do it. Maika Leibbrandt is our host today. She works as a workplace consultant here at Gallup and might even be my best friend at work. Maika, welcome to the program.
I've been working for that title for years, Jim, so I'm so thrilled to hear it come out of your mouth.
Well, I used to say you were my favorite, and Blanca has been giving me a lot of crap about that. If you know Blanca, she does our Spanish version of Theme Thursday, which I get to help to produce. So if you're a Spanish speaker, you know someone who's a Spanish speaker, we have versions of these available in Spanish as well. But Blanca gets really salty with me because I've said you're my favorite. So maybe I'll just switch it over to best friend at work.
Or you could just start telling her she's your favorite in Spanish, and I could be your favorite English speaker.
She sees through my wizardry. And so today, really excited. Arranger, number one for me. I realized I talked too much on season 3, so we're going to really focus on you this time. But Arranger is my favorite because it's number one. I use it all the time. Maika, when we think about Arranger, why don't you give us a short summary of that as we start diving in?
Sure. So I listened to several of our previous seasons of Arranger this morning as well. And Jim, I don't think you talked too much. But Arranger is an executing theme. Remember season 4 right now. This one is about what does it look like when it's at its best, and how can you really aim toward getting there? What kind of investment do you need to make to move from talent into strength? Remember, a strength is near perfect performance in a given activity. Just a brief overview of what Arranger really means. And if you want to dive deeper into some definitions or some compare and contrast, go just search for Theme Thursday Arranger and choose seasons 1 through 3. We'll do a lot more just defining and naming it in those seasons. But just briefly, the Arranger is the I don't know how you keep it all straight theme. I think about a juggler, perhaps an orchestrator of improvement, somebody who's comfortable initiating reconfiguration, aware of the pieces and how to make them all fit. What Arranger really wants is productivity in the most efficient way possible, and they're not afraid to make slight changes or make slight improvements that will help us do things in a more efficient way.
Maika, I heard from a coach last night. I was at a meetup here in Omaha. I heard from a coach. She said she's been binging on our seasons of Theme Thursday. So ordering them 1, 2, 3, and 4 when it's available there. That's a little bit of an Arranger exercise, I think, in some. I do a lot of binge watching of things. I like to take disparate parts and kind of jam them all together, or find things on YouTube where I can put them together and keep them all going, keep topics going all at the same time. So it's kind of exciting to hear that one. If you're a Theme Thursday listener and you haven't binged on our stuff, you can go back and go season 1, season 2, season 3 might be a good Arranger exercise. But what are other things when we think about what's best in Arranger? What are some other things that we can look for?
You know what? I think what you just said about binging is that when I binge, Netflix is in charge. It comes up with what's next and I just watch it, and I just am fed something over and over again. Arranger, when you talked about the Arranger binge, it's I want to figure out the best way to watch this. I want to have a little bit of control over my playlist, over how things come to me, over the way that makes the most sense. And I think that idea of being able to brave something really complex and do it with of delight and mastery is really what Arranger is about. If you have high Arranger, this first half of our program is going to be all about you. So the value that you really bring when you're at your best is being able to embrace complexity in a way that lets other people sort of relax a little bit. I think, Jim, about working with you and watching, I know that if at any given moment during a podcast, you're probably doing about 17 different things. But because I know that and I know you've got it under control, I can sort of sit back and just play the role that I need to play. I think that's an example of Arranger really at its best. It's also about tweaking the plan in order to improve what we can accomplish. So not just saying we can get it done, but we might be able to get it done faster, or we might be able to get it done better for our audience or our clients, or we might be able to get it done in a way that improves the original outcome. And we can do that by making small changes. So in order to do that, Arranger, of course, is, I think, speaking a language of possibility, but it is about what's possible with the pieces that are in front of us. I also think sometimes Arranger has a bend toward people. And of course, that'll depend on what other themes you have, what sort of situations you're in. But when Arranger's at its best, it's also facilitating collaborative teamwork. Being the ringleader who understands what part all the people on your team play and how they should come out on stage, or how they should be announced, or how perhaps they can work together. I think it's about gracefully managing multiple demands on your own time and attention in a way that looks effortless, in a way that people say, wow, how did you do that?
A lot of chat going on in the chat room from Arrangers talking about process improvement, especially big processes where you mentioned this word complexity, right? Where we have to put a lot of diversity or a lot of diverse systems together. I think there was some chat in season 3. I have Maximizer number 3, and the Arranger and Maximizer played well together for me. When I think about maximizing the processes, out in the chat room, Chris said, Arranger is fun for me, hearing my dishwasher, washing machine, oven, and wireless speakers all humming away. And for me, it might be my computer's downstairs mining crypto, as well as running other processes, and I'm checking other systems, and I've got computer systems running, home automation running in the house. To me, that's peaceful, right? For some people, that's chaos. And so when I think about what Arrangers can do more of, Maika, what are some other things like that we could think of what should they be raising their hand for?
I think raise your hand for complex projects that have a lot of moving parts. Look for and sort to those opportunities that might look at the very beginning like it's going to take 12 arms in order to do. That might just be getting yourself in over your head and making sure that you can swim. But that over your headness will probably be more of an external assumption than you will, than an internal piece. It's sort of like when you talk to people who are high in risk as a talent, they don't see those risks as being necessarily dangerous. They just think that they're normal everyday processes. I think complexity and Arranger might have a similar relationship there, where sign up for things that are difficult, that include, I think, a lot of multiplicity. I also think perhaps, and I'm going to toy with this idea, and Jim, I'd love your feedback on it. This morning I was thinking about having one similar specialty, just focusing in on one thing. What's your specialty? Maybe it's a technology or a specific nuance in your industry, or something that has to do with people. But if you can identify that and think about your specialty as being your home base, then look for similar opportunities that might have a little bit to do with that, but not completely. And think about creating an orbit around that specialty. So these similar opportunities or these other complexities will take you further into places that you haven't mastered, into things that you haven't quite executed yet, and create some complexity there. So your solar system, if you will, can be grounded in your own talent, but then that reach that you have for others, for other opportunities, for bigger ideas, will help you feel like you're really in the thick of it in lots of different ways, in a way that might be a little bit more organized because it's grounded into that one specialty.
Yeah, no, and I think of, we think of our webcasting here and when we started it, right? The idea is influence, but that plays into social media. And then how does that play into making sure we have the materials and equipment that people need to do their job. And then how do we think about how does that translate into personal events and meetups, right? This ecosystem that all kinds of begins to revolve around one idea of influence, really, because that's right. When I think about a ranger, oftentimes I think about this idea of bringing all these pieces together, not to just pull them together. They need to do something powerful, right? And that's the success bit, right? And we've been chatting a lot about using Maximizer in the chat room here, and that's for me. Maximizer is the sorting that helps me understand: am I doing the right thing? Is it working? Before the show, Mike, I said to you, we got to celebrate 1.7 million views to the coaches blog since we started that thing back in 2012. That's a big deal. We wouldn't know it if we didn't measure it, but the act of you and I doing this blog is an arranger exercise in itself. We have to find writers. It has to be edited. It's got to go right. It's these complex processes that aren't necessarily related, but have to be done. I delight in watching those processes be efficient and watching them be successful and then measuring them, right? It's a delight type deal. So yeah, what else when we think of anything else there we can do more of?
I think look for opportunities that aren't yet set in stone. And be choosy about that. That might be one way that you sort to where you say yes. You can make tweaks that are going to benefit everybody. And based on your other themes, that might dictate whether you want something that's completely blank slate, or whether young ideas are better than brand new ones, or whether something that's a little bit closer to being completed and solidified is better for you. But I think a ranger in its essence is going to bring a improvement to the process element. It's different than Maximizer. I know that it's easy sometimes to use Maximizer as a way to define a ranger, but really Maximizer is about doing something in the most perfect way over and over again until you reach the very, very best version. A ranger is about getting it done. Remember, it's that executing piece, and it's the ability to see something and be able to break it up into the pieces and perhaps reconfigure those pieces in a way that makes more sense. So look, if you're saying yes to a project that is already going to require a lot of routine and structure, it might not give you the opportunity to break apart the pieces and rebuild them. I have a feeling I am on the cusp of about a decade of Legos in my house. I have a 2.5-year-old son who's already showing some interest in that. And what he loves is not building something and leaving it. He's going to be the type of Lego builder who builds something, takes it apart, and builds it better. And that idea of how do we get to where we're going a little bit better, that efficiency, that moving a project forward piece, I think is going to be important. So as you're saying yes to something, or whether you're deciding what to say yes to, get a feel for how many rules you can still break, and what sort of pieces are set in stone. I also think about getting in the habit of asking people, what can I make easier for you? Especially around the vein of moving things forward. What can I help you get done a little bit easier? It's one question that I think offers up your talent to folks in a way that allows you to demonstrate that kind of process improvement that autonomy will give you. So if you say, hey, what can I help make easier for you? Even if it's something totally out of the blue, you can take a look at how it's configured, offer it back to somebody, and then move on. So it does occur pretty frequently with responsibility, but it doesn't hold onto things like responsibility does. It's completely okay for a ranger just to be that service to partners, to say, let me take a look at how this could maybe be a little bit better, and then give it back to you and let you run.
David in the chat room says, I like to be a rearranger in some ways. That's not exactly what he said. I like to rearrange information to help other people. And I think it can be a rearranger, right? We use the word arranger, but it can be that sorting in the sense of all these different complex processes. How do I make something new is what he said in his comment there, right? How do I take old and make it new? And I like that. I do a lot of that here in the webcast. How do we take our information and reuse it? How do we slice it up or spin it out or create it in different forms or put it in different places so people can consume it? When we think about environments that best support a ranger, what are those environments?
I think it's where you've got some clarity around what the goal is. So ask, how will success be measured, or how will success be managed? Make sure that you're configuring toward the right shared understanding of a goal. if we're creating something new, to take that example, Jim, just for the sake of being new and edgy, that's very different than creating something new for the sake of being more effective or more efficient or more closer to our goal. So I think create some clarity around where we're going. I also think about ask for more than you typically are given. That just means quantity. Ask for more than you think you can handle. You can stretch yourself by making sure that your plate is full. And people with higher ranger, season 1, Mara talks about almost procrastinating until her plate is full. And I think a ranger is the image I have of a ranger is from this clip art that I remember from years ago of a woman. It's a working mom image. If you Google it in clip art, I'm sure you can find it. She's got like 12 hands, and every hand is holding something different. In one hand, there's a computer, and in one hand, there's a baby bottle, and in one hand, there's a calendar. And that idea of being better when all your hands are full is, I think, key for a ranger. Give yourself that opportunity to have something to juggle. It's hard to juggle if you don't have enough. We're not saying go overwhelm yourself. Probably need to align all those things you say yes to having a common goal and being things that you truly love. But really make sure that you're filling your plate, I think, is important to use that talent. Also, how could you have a better connection with all of the components of a project? So you don't have to be a subject matter expert on every piece of your project. I mean, you could be sort of the ground zero or the central station for understanding how all those pieces come together. And so, in order to get even better at that, make sure that you've got at least a surface level understanding of all the gears that you're working with. Also think about how can you have access to subject matter experts. So let them do the depth and you can manage the utility. I would also make sure that you're asking, hey, what is really set in stone here? What are the rules that I can't tweak? What are maybe the unwritten expectations that we all adhere to? And some clarity around that will help you run free and make some changes and some tweaks in other areas.
Maika, you describing me, like as you're talking about this is such a description of for me, I'm not the expert. I can talk to it, but I much prefer to find the people who are the experts. That's you. That's our guests on Called the Coach, right? That's Sangeeta and Todd coming in when we're talking about our BP10 product. For me, I find delight in being the centerpiece that all those things spin around, right? But the big deals are my experts, right? We even do that Home Gadget Geeks, which you have found recently, my tech podcast that I do a lot of. We make those guests the big deal, right? They're the experts. So how do we highlight that out? Do you think, is there some element of jack of all trades but master of none? Is that an arranger? Do you think that's an arranger phrase?
I think it probably doesn't. It's probably too humble to be an accurate statement. It might feel that way, but what you're probably mastering is multiplicity, and that in itself is a talent, something that you are a specialist in. Maybe your specialist is teamwork, collaboration, getting folks to see each other. You mentioned influence. So if you feel like you're in that jack of all trades, master of none area, I'd encourage you to look a little bit deeper and say, even in the way that I'm mastering all of these things, or Jack and Jilling all of these things, what is it that people come to me for? Because in order to have access to all trades, there's some, I think, assumption that you've done it more than once, and that people are coming back to you and saying, you seem to be able to manage this. And that's an art, that's a skill, that's something to look further into.
Yeah. And I think it's needed. Yeah. Like in some spaces, especially where there's chaos, they need arrangers to come in and take over. And so I think that is an area when we think about what you can raise your hand for, is raise your hand for chaos. I think often, we talked about this in season 2 when we talked about theme dynamics, is that we often see arrangers and adaptability go together. That's 7 for me. And so those things go well. What can we worry less about? So we talked about who you are, but what about what you're not?
This is my favorite question, because I feel like it's the exhale answer. Like, who are you just not going to be, unless you find it in another theme? Kristen and Josh in the chat room have been asking about adaptability, and I actually peeled this one out to say, who are you not? Worry less about being spontaneous. You are actually, if you're high ranger, you're better if you can be in control. So worry less about responding instantly to folks and worry more about how can you organize and be the central hub, not just the first responder. And that's to me the essential difference between a ranger and adaptability. Last week, I was working with several executives who were all in charge of an industry that changes a lot. And what I found interesting was several of them had a ranger really high and adaptability really low. And several of them had adaptability really high and a ranger really low. And I'm not sure that there's a scientific correlation between those two at all in the rest of our database. But it was fascinating to hear these leaders talk about how they handle change. And those with high a ranger, they love to be in the seat, making the choices, sort of in that command center or the situation room, if you will, and being able to say, okay, you need to go here, we need to go there. I've got all this and I can make it hum. Adaptability likes to do that too, but I think it's a little bit more of the first responder, the EMT sort of situation. I want to go with where my people need to take me and be the leader that they can look to when things are crazy. The outcome probably looks very different or very, very similar. I'm pretty sure that when somebody with a ranger is adapting to chaos and somebody with adaptability is adapting to chaos, their followers might not know the difference. But if you're the one with a ranger, I think you're better if you've done some of the things we mentioned so far. If you've understood the moving parts, if you've given yourself some understanding about what are the rules you can and can't break, if you've put yourself in that position to think about a ranger as an assisting theme that's going to help other people make things more efficient. What you're going to be looking for is how do we move forward? So worry less about being spontaneous, worry less about buckling down on one thing at a time. Simplicity is for a ranger, simplicity is not an interesting place to start. It's the best place to end. So don't pick up a simple project. Instead, pick up something that's messy and complex and make it simple.
Maika, when I was a kid, I would actually mess things up so that I could fix them. And that sounds a little bit like restorative. Like, okay, Jim, you're fixing, but not from a place of, I didn't fix it for fixing's sake. I liked putting it back in, and I liked taking complex, topics, complex, like my room, jumble it all up so I could resort it in a better way. So I could put things where they belong. And I remember just looking when I was done and thinking for a second, this is great. It would bring me great peace to look around the room, like, wow, let's do it again. And I let's tear it all apart. And I can't tell you how many times I still do that with my office and things where I'm like, I have days I'm like, let's just jumble it up and then put it back together. More efficient, better systems. There's a lot of other themes in that, by the way. It's hard to isolate this thing by itself because it's influenced by the themes around it. But that is one of those kinds of things I enjoyed the chaos, and I enjoyed it because I knew I could fix it.
And you enjoyed sort of controlling it. I have adaptability high. It would never occur to me to rearrange my office. I've moved, I don't know how many times in the last 10 years, 6 or 8. I have the exact same office setup because it works. I'll move on to something more urgent. And so it's not about assessing what's there that could be better. It's about just, for me, adaptability is just responding to what's right in front of your face.
Yeah. For me, it's actually a late day exercise when I'm the most tired. I kind of energize myself by arranging things. And you would think that maybe that's one of those areas when you're thinking about your own themes. What do you go to when you're tired? Right?
Yes.
What are those things you do to re-energize? That could be a good strength spotter.
What do you go to when you're tired? What gives you energy? And I think a lot of the times people will hear this and think, well, that describes me, but I don't have that theme. When it's real talent, we're dealing in extremes with CliftonStrengths. We're really dealing in areas of huge concentrations of natural behaviors. So when it's really there as a talent, I think it gives you energy. It feeds you. We've talked previously, you do it with ease and excellence and enjoyment.
No, right on. We better hustle because I'm looking at the clock here. Working, it's my fault. I'm talking too much. When working with a ranger, what should we expect?
So now the other side of the coin, if you're somebody who's working with an arranger, expect to be challenged on the assumed ways of working. Expect, I love this word, impermanence, but the kind of impermanence that you can trust. Arrangers deal in trust and in responsibility and sort of in that sort of proven emotional attachment. And so you can expect that nothing that they do is ever going to be the same way, probably, but that it's always in the best interest of others. In that same vein, you can expect reliability. I was listening to Hamilton this morning as I was writing these notes, and I actually wrote down, they get the job done. Arrangers, they get the job done. They may see the answer before you do, or in ways that are just more complex than you ever imagined. So give them some space and trust them.
Yeah. How can we recognize them? Again, a super important question when we think about how powerful this is in the workplace and even at home too.
Yeah, I recognize their flexibility. Notice when they're calm in the eye of the storm. It doesn't happen without them loving that storm. So call them out for it and recognize how they were able to change on a moment's notice and direct on a moment's notice. Also think about recognizing the work that goes into executing. If you can celebrate the organizing, the arranging, it might even be more meaningful to them than celebrating only that end goal.
How can we stretch them? This is a how do you get Superman to work out? How do you stretch people that are already good? You can't give them more because but how do you stretch them?
This is a great question to think about. If I'm managing somebody with a ranger, how do I focus on developing that arranger instead of falling into that tempting trap of developing something they're not so good at? Give them autonomy to make change. Put them in the command chair. Give them that Captain Kirk moment where they get to sit there and sort of direct the air traffic control. Invite them to complex, multifaceted projects or really complicated problems. It'll be even better if you can set them up by saying, "Here's some of the pieces of this problem that we already see," and then watch that storm around them so that they can pull them down and arrange it. I would also think challenge them to be an arranger not only of process but also of people. How can you ask for their perspective, I think, on teamwork or their perspective on collaboration? They probably have a really processy understanding of practically what are the emotions at play here? What are the talents at play? What's the reality of the people on the team? And how can we get them to work together a little bit better?
Micah, no surprise, we actually had an arranger lunch scheduled here at Gallup for a time where we got everybody, a group of us that have arranger in our top 5. We never got together because we were always busy doing other things. Isn't that kind of funny how that kind of played out in that way? But we always wanted to partner together more. How can we partner with arranger to make it better?
Well, Jim, this is where I'm going to give you my take, and then I want to know about great partners for you. But I think partner with somebody with high arranger by offering the complexity. Don't feel like you have to summarize a problem before you give it to an arranger or summarize an opportunity. They'll want to know those inputs. They'll want to speed forward to what are the multifaceted aspects of this? What are the complexities? What are all the things that we need to make sure in touch in order to move forward? Don't trap them with routine. Don't trap them with, oh, well, this is the way it's always been done, or this is the steps that you need to take, and share your goals with them. It'll help them see you. It'll help them see you in their lens of understanding progress toward a goal. But Jim, when you think about how people honor your arranger or how they partner with you in a way that feels like it works, what do people do for you?
Well, so for me, Ranger 1, then I have ideation and adaptability in my top 10. And then I have activator. So those are very forward, getting started, love being in the beginning of process, like thinking through projects in their early state. I love that. There's nothing better than sitting in a room and brainstorming or working through problems or what could be and generating all those things. My best partners, Micah, are those like you who can take it and operationalize it. You and I, many of times I've got all these ideas. Hey, we could do this with webcasting. We could do this and that and this. Now, you share in some of that dreaming with me, but you are a much better executor than I am of actually taking those dreams, pushing them forward, and making things happen. So I need executing people. Even though arranger, right, has that execution to it, I still need help because everything else is influence. I'll want to talk about it forever. Woo communication. Let's just go talk about it. That's my best day ever. I need help with the actual execution piece. And so I look for, on the teams that I'm in, I look for the executors early now. So I go in, I start scoping top 5. Like, okay, where who's going to help me?
You're going to
Yeah,
be my person.
I'm going to lean on you, and you're going to, because I can give you. Oftentimes, those executors don't have, or they just need to be told, like, okay, what do I need to do? And so I can often give them or hand those tasks down and say, would you help me get this done? And oftentimes they're very helpful to do that. And so I need those executors in my life to be able to push things forward.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of that, we have these awesome challenges that we've been doing. You've been posting them on Instagram. They're available in the show notes to this program. But when we think about some actual things to do, how do we want to challenge people, Maika?
So there's 2 different challenges. The first one's going to be if you have a ranger, here's how you can invest in it. The second one will be if you don't have a ranger, here's how you can understand it a little bit better and focus on your own themes. So challenge number 1 for people with a ranger, 3 parts. You don't have to do all 3. Pick one. Number 1, organize a social event that excites your entire team. You might define team as family or a group of people, but pick a group of people, maybe more than 3, no more than 10, and organize a social event that makes them all excited. Number 2,
can I say one thing? Do a scavenger hunt. Great thing to do for Rangers. Organize a scavenger hunt around the city, around your town, whatever. If you're going to do a group of people, whatever, so much fun. And I really enjoy, as an arranger, I like the different pieces and putting them together and then having this common thing at the center with points. So
okay, bonus points from Jim if your event is a scavenger hunt with points. Number 2, revisit a regular meeting or a regular routine that you have and try doing it in a better way. Number 3, and this one's my favorite, tell 3 of your own partners a unique value that they bring to your projects and do it in writing. So arrangers, I think it's just tapping into that awareness that they have of the moving pieces. Think about those pieces as people and recognize them.
Yeah, let's do an arranger exercise now and move this conversation to Facebook. So facebook.com/group/called to coach. You guys over the last couple of weeks have been great about moving some of these conversations. We had a good one last week. We had a good one around the go bag. Let's talk about that. What are you doing? What are the challenges? How are they working out? Let's get some feedback from you on things that are working around our challenges. What about if I don't have this, Maika? Because there's a whole bunch of people who don't. What kind of challenges can they do? Yeah.
So we're going to call this your lesser theme challenge. If a ranger is not dominant for you, 3 options for you. Number 1, name the themes you do have that help you prioritize your tasks. I think it's important that people don't just sit in this theme envy place of a ranger thinking, gosh, I just need to hire one of them. Instead, when you need to be in command central, what are the themes that help you prioritize? Number 2, discover a tool that helps you keep a lot of complex ideas in one place. This might be an app, it might be a whiteboard, it might be a partner, but I really want to know, what do you use in terms of a support system or a tool that helps you organize complexity? And number 3 is, I'm going to call it, what is your magic goal number? I'd like you to think, if you don't have a ranger, how many important goals can you truly hold in your head at a time? What is your ideal amount of priorities? And I know that the word priority really means one, but I think get closer to yourself, study your own success, study those times when you've been amazing, and look for how many balls you've had in the air. It might be that it's 1. And that's important for you to understand. It might be that it's 4 or 5. But think about, what is your magic goal number?
I like knowing that. I never thought about actually testing it, like testing your limits. I think that'd be a good one for a ranger.
That would be cool for a ranger to do as well. So when we move that there, make sure you answer it whether you have a ranger or whether you don't, because I think maybe it'd be really fun to hear the number that the rangers come up with. I do post these. I post these as soon as we're done to Instagram @StrengthsTalk. You just swipe through and you see a nice little aesthetically pleasing image of all of these challenges. So there's one post for the ranger challenge and one for the lesser theme challenge.
Facebook.com/groups/called-to-coach. You can start some threads, hashtag it, or put the question in, then hashtag it with a ranger so we can find it a little bit later if we want to do that. And then let's start that discussion on Facebook. If you want to bring those, write them down, write the question down. Help us out a little bit with that. We appreciate it. And we've had some great responses from you, both places, both in Instagram and in Facebook. Maika, any final thoughts before we wrap it here and go into the post show?
There's just something super beautiful about a ranger, and it's about getting the job done. And I, my final thought is a little bit of a story. It was the best compliment I've ever had as a non-arranger, but somebody who envies a ranger. The other morning, I was solo parenting because my husband had already gone to work. I had to get two very little kids out the door, and my son, who's 2.5, I was convincing him to come up the stairs with me to play with his trucks in the bathroom while I showered. I'd put the baby on the floor. It'd all work. And so I'm carrying the baby, my son's breakfast, and a truck all the way up the stairs. And Simon looks at me and he says, "Mom, you have 4 hands." And that was the best compliment you could ever give somebody who strives for the arranger output but doesn't really have the talent. So congratulations to those of you with high arranger. You have 4 hands.
I appreciate that. That is great. And Maika, we will remind everyone that we have a post show available. You can only get the post show if you come around for the live show. Kind of whatever you want to talk about, you can throw in the chat room. Maika and I've got some stuff loaded up. But we appreciate you coming out to be a part of this. And we'll remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. If you'd like to be a guest blogger, and actually Maika was telling me earlier, we have a few more than we've had in the past. So that's great.
Yeah,
you guys are sending in your blog. So remember, we want it to be original, 400 to 600 words. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Put guest blogger in the subject line. And those will route over to Maika. We'll help you get that done. Actually, we just had a blog release from a coach like you that are listening right now, just yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yesterday, and it's really good. You should check it out.
So Dan did that for us, and right, Dan, that was Dan's blog yesterday. I think so. Yep. So we appreciate you doing that. Head out to coaching.gallup.com if you want to see it right now. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach, don't forget, you can see a list of all the courses that lead to certification at our courses site, courses.gallup.com. Don't forget Summit. You can still sign up for our Summit. It's coming up here July 16th, 17th, and 18th. By the way, the courses have a 15% discount at the Summit. So if you're like, whoa, it's pretty expensive, well, you can get 15% off if you come during the Summit. Go to CliftonStrengthsSummit.com and get registered for that thing. If you're listening to it after July of 2018, we're probably already in the planning phase for the 2019 Summit. So
wasn't that fun? Wasn't that Summit great?
That Summit was awesome, Maika. Probably the best Summit ever.
That moment that you said that thing, life-changing.
It was awesome. So we'd love to see you there, or it was great to see you there. Either way, isn't that weird that we have to talk in the future there? Head out and join us, CliftonStrengthsSummit.com. Don't forget to join our Facebook page. I talked about that as well, facebook.com/group/called2coach. We'll get you there. Just search Called to Coach. That will get you there as well. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. If you're joining us live, stay around for the bonus post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.